CEO Justin B. Smith.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here in this wonderful place. It's such a pleasure to gather at the National Portrait Gallery this evening. This is a reception is an important moment within what I hope you know is a broader convening that's happening in Washington across the street, and also later tonight at the Portrait Gallery, the Semaphore World Economy, which is actually, we're proud to say, the largest CEO convening and gathering in America, with 550 CEOs from over 80 countries here in DC. And actually, the core of this gathering is to bring together the world's leaders for serious and substantive and fair and non-ideological, pragmatic conversations. And Bank of America and Brian Moynihan have been true foundational partners to Semaphore World Economy when the idea was just a small twinkle in our eyes. And so we're very grateful for their support across the last 4 years. And tonight, of course, reflects a different version of that type of continued commitment, not just to this platform, but to the broader role that American institutions like the Portrait Gallery play in supporting global dialogue, investment, and long-term economic leadership. So we're very grateful, Brian and Bank of America. So with that, please join me in welcoming Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan in conversation with U.S. Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum, moderated by Edward O'Keefe, CEO of the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library and former award-winning journalist. Please join the stage. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ed O'Keefe, and I'm very pleased to be moderating this conversation tonight. I want to take a special moment up top to welcome a few guests. We have Senator Kevin Cramer, as well as Representative Julie Fedorchak in the crowd. And my personal favorite First Lady of North Dakota, the former First Lady, Catherine Burgum. Thank you for being with us, Catherine. And before we get started, we have a trio of amazing announcements. We're all here in the National Portrait Gallery here tonight because Bank of America has made a commitment to restore over 100 portraits of the presidents, both in their frames and in the paintings themselves, as part of their arts and cultural initiative. You see one of those portraits, perhaps my favorite, Theodore Roosevelt, here tonight. So thank you, Brian and Bank of America, for that generous commitment.
Oh, good. It's an honor. It's an honor, and it's fun to see that. And I think we were talking with the Secretary, when they restore it, you will be shocked at how different it looks and how much more approachable it will look, I guarantee it. But it's an honor to help 110. They're going to go through them, and then they'll come back and figure out what order. And these pictures of these presidents that served our country help make it what it is. To help restore them is critically needed, because it will then preserve these for the next 100, 200 years for other people to see.
Well, thank you for that work. In addition to that generous commitment, Bank of America is also going to be hosting, it was announced earlier today, the very first special exhibition at the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. It'll be a career retrospective on the work of David Hume Kennerly. David is in the audience tonight. David, are you with us? David Hume Kennerly. Woo-hoo! For those of you who do not know David, he has covered 13 presidential campaigns. He is a Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer. He was President Ford's White House photographer. He has been at every cultural moment in America's history the past 60 years. He was ringside at Ali Frazier. He was at the finale of Seinfeld. If it was an important moment in American history, David was there. So we're very, very happy to be hosting that special exhibition. And last, but certainly not least, and the one that I am certainly most happy about, Bank of America earlier today announced that they will be making a $5 million gift to the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bank of America. And since 90% of the audience might not know what the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library is, I'm going to start with Secretary Burgum, who's been very involved in this effort for the past 10 years, dating back to his time as governor. Secretary Burgum, what is the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, and why is it going to be significant and important for our nation?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ed, for your leadership. The library would not have materialized without your entrepreneurship and your perseverance to bring an audacious idea to life. And again, Brian, thank you and Bank of America for the incredible work in supporting this amazing project. I've had two perspectives, or actually three perspectives, because I've got a perspective on the library as someone who grew up in a small town in North Dakota, and the only national park we had in North Dakota was Theodore Roosevelt National Park, which is the only of the 63 flagship national parks that's named after a person instead of a place. But of course, it was the place where Theodore Roosevelt, after his wife and his mother died in the same house on the same day, on Valentine's Day in 1884, where he left the East Coast, gave up his daughter Alice to his sister to raise, and headed west as a broken, grieving individual, as you can imagine, to go through that kind of trauma. And he found himself there, and then he remade himself. And when he remade himself, the North Dakota Badlands, into this rough and tumble cowboy that went on to become, the Rough Rider, the first president to win the Medal of Honor for his heroism and bravery in battle, wrote more books than all the other presidents combined, wrote more letters than Jefferson and Washington combined, had this remarkable, remarkable life that he had that had such an influence on our country and really set up the American century. And of course, as it relates to banking, in 1907, he was involved in the work to help save the country from a financial crisis in 1907, which led to the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. So it just goes on, the impact he had. And there was no presidential library for Theodore Roosevelt. And of course, we have, in the national park system, we have entrance communities. This is not just a place. It's not just an incredible building. It's the most sustainable building being built in America. Ed led an effort, a global architectural search, 38 firms from around the world. This is going to be one of the most amazing buildings that you've ever been in. But it's much more than that, because this is a place where it's not about just the past, it's about inspiration for the future. When you come to this library, it's going to challenge you as you walk through it to choose one of three paths, which is citizenship, conservation, or leadership. And when you get to the end, you're going to find yourself surrounded by the words of the in the arena speech, and it's going to challenge you. What are you going to do to be part of that future? And so this is a high-tech, cutting-edge, first native AI presidential library ever built. And it's going to be a place where kids are dragging their parents and their grandparents to, as opposed to most presidential libraries are dust and books and whatever. And the parents drag the kids. You got to see this thing. This is the other way around in terms of what it's going to be. And then situated at the entrance to a national park, it's now become a model, because by the time Ed's done fundraising, there's going to be over $500 million raised from generous partners like Bank of America that are. I just raised his fundraising quota there in case you didn't see what was going on there. But anyway, this is going to be the largest private sector project ever done at any one of the entrance communities of any of the national parks. I've already been going around now in my new role, because I went from little kid to an accidental governor to this role right now. We're overseeing the parks as part of the amazing interior role, is to challenge all of these communities to say, if they can do this in a town of 112 people in North Dakota, why at a place like Yosemite can't we have $1 billion project at the entrance community? And the answer is we can. This country can do great, big, bold things. That's what Roosevelt believed in. This is one of these things that when you go there and visit, you're going to find it inspiring. And when you come, I would invite all of you, because it is connected to one of the best single-track trail systems in the country, that you'll be able to not only drive to this presidential library, but you'll be able to hike to it, like Theodore Roosevelt loved to do. You'll be able to ride horseback to it. or you'll be able to, which he didn't do a lot of mountain biking, but he would have, if that sport had been invented then, he would have tried it for sure. But anyway, this is a different kind of experience, but again, it's going to be a great celebration. It is an official America 250, Freedom 250 event. It's part of how we're going to celebrate this year. So this is an invitation for all of you to come and see what bold dreams can build and how you can be influenced by the life of Theodore Roosevelt.
Well, thank you. And Brian, when doing the research on Bank of America, I was really surprised to learn that your predecessor banks date all the way back to 1784. We're talking about just 8 years after the Declaration of Independence, 4 years before the first election in United States presidential history. So you studied history at Brown. Obviously, arts, culture, and what I would describe as patriotic philanthropy are a big part of the DNA of Bank of America. Talk for a minute about why you make these investments and what they mean to Bank of America.
Well, I think these institutions and the preservation of history and the ideas behind history and why President Roosevelt was so important to the country and how he led it, and the stories are both apocryphal and real, are just important to tell. And so we've worked with a lot of the presidential libraries. But circling back to the company and its history, everybody talks about the 250th anniversary of the country, but the first 7 years were at war. And then the Treaty of Paris was signed. And so there was no country. We were a bunch of colonies that were trying to beat England, and we did. And then they signed the Treaty of Paris, and then guess what? It's like the dog caught the bus. All the sources of capital were gone. All the sources of trade were gone. You had a bunch of people who waged a war and used every ounce of their strength and had no money to pay them, and they came in. So what do they need to do? They need to figure out how to fund themselves because all the money had come in from around the world. And so our bank was formed with some depositors named Hancock and Adams, and it was signed into a charter by Sam Adams. It was the second bank in the United States. But the most important thing isn't that one, it's that city in town after town. So in this Washington, D.C., the bank formed in 1813. And Washington, D.C. had somewhere, the 1820 census, I think, was 13,000 people. And some of us might like it to be that small again, but that might be a little hard to accomplish. But think about that. So we were here, and we helped lend the money to restore the White House after the British came back and decided to burn it down in 1812. So our view is the country stands for an idea. It's not about first generation and primogeniture and the things that define it. It stood for an idea of freedom of religion, press, all that, but also stood for capitalism. And the capitalism has to be, the banks are how capitalism gets transmitted. You deposit money, and I lend it to Secretary Burgum, and we're in the middle of that to help communities grow. And we've been doing that over and over for 240 plus years in every community around the country. And so telling those stories and being involved in telling those stories are just important things to do. And so that it's part of the historical context, but it's also the idea of democracy and capitalism is why this country is where it is today. It wouldn't have been here if it would have been one, or it wasn't or, it had to be and. And banks were the core to helping the and occur.
And you wrote an extraordinary letter to your shareholders talking about some of these examples. I mean, the Bank of America or its predecessor banks were involved in financing the Erie Canal, the Golden Gate Bridge, Gone with the Wind, and Disneyland. I think these would be somewhat surprising for people to learn.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of it. Even the company that acquired all the companies, or ended up the company out of North Carolina, it went into business for a simple purpose. Nobody from New York would lend money to the Carolinas when the Industrial Revolution took place. They just said, we're from New York, we're not going to lend you money. All the money was sitting in New York, and that formed. So each of these stories about that. So if you go into any town, city, country, the Golden Gate Bridge, we did the bond issue for that. AP and Giannini, which is the Bank of America, everybody visualizes San Francisco fire, earthquake fire. He sets up a little table, starts lending money out, puts them back, and tells them, go gets the cash out of the vault, and he starts lending people money. And you've got great stories like that, the Erie Canal, if you go into New York, Rhode Island, 1791, St. Louis, as commerce moved west, Chicago, St. Louis, Oklahoma City, Little Rock. And then the South took off, and Texas, Dallas, Houston, Florida, all these towns and cities. The story just goes on and on. That history is unbelievable. And we have a museum that has it all captured. It's pretty wild. And then there was the innovation. So the microencoding on your checks so you could sort them. Frankly, a lot of people don't agree with this, but we invented the credit card. It was called the Bank of America card. Look, you see Hank Aaron's home run? There's the Bank of America card out there. That's before Visa existed. We gave it to the industry to create Visa. And so the history of the company is wonderful, but that early history is just as important because that's when it wasn't clear America was going to make it. And you needed banks to start to get that economy growing so we could fix the country back up after being at war for 7 years and build the powerhouse that could defend itself 20 years later when they came back again.
Well, we've taken sides in the credit card war, so I can take Visa off the list of potential sponsors of the TR Library, I guess. But Secretary, you just heard about this incredible history with Bank of America, which almost runs exactly parallel with the history of our country. We're going to be celebrating 250 years. We're looking back and we're looking forward. What, as Secretary of the Interior, do you and the administration have planned outside of the celebration of the TR Library?
Well, I would say there's a lineup of incredible events that are going to happen this year, and I can tick off a few of them. Things that have never happened before, including right here in Washington, D.C., because what's more American than car racing? I mean, we're a country that was built around a love of automobiles, and of course we're going to have a IndyCar race in Washington, D.C. So you can have Indy cars going 200 miles an hour down Pennsylvania Avenue. It's some of the most famous streets in America. I'm sure some of you, when you've been trying to get around this town, wish that you could go 200 miles an hour down these streets.
We'd take 20, I think.
Yeah, but it's exciting. We expect hundreds of thousands, possibly even 1 million people. It's going to be free. There's going to be giant screens set up all the way up and down the mall. The top drivers, 3 days of racing happening here, and all of this because again. The spirit of let's get it done, and the IndyCar folks coming, willing to do this thing, putting that together. So that's one that I'm particularly excited about. That was something that just an idea that came up this spring of like how do we celebrate? But across our national parks, our U.S. Fish and Wildlife locations, across all the historic battlefields, cultural locations that we maintain, we're going to be celebrating at each of those. So one of the things I would encourage everybody is to figure out a way to get out, explore, get off your screens, go get a chance to see America. National parks have been described as America's best idea, and of course, who was behind a lot of that? Theodore Roosevelt. When he was grieving in the Badlands and struggling as a cattle rancher, he came to understand what was happening as we were transitioning as a country, and that conservation became an ethic that has become part of the fabric of our country. And we're so blessed. We are so blessed with the abundant resources of this country. If I had one wish for 250th, it's not just that we have amazing events that we're going to be happening across the country, celebrating. I mean, because we're going to have the world's largest fireworks display here in D.C., the tall ships in New York, Independence Hall, the Presidential Library, coast to coast. There's going to be all these amazing events that are happening. But my wish for everyone is that people could be centered in gratitude around the abundance that we have as a nation. Because there's the time when everybody feels like that you got to get triggered, by the latest thing of, oh, be afraid, or it's a crisis, or I just saw this post and now I'm upset. No, let's just, step back a second and take a look and realize that we're blessed as a country, both in terms of the opportunity, the freedoms that we have, but also deeply blessed by the resources that we have. One of the things that I feel that we ought to celebrate for 250 is the Secretary of Interior, because we got all of you, of which I then am responsible for. You've all been told you own part of the national debt. You've all been told that, right? I mean, it's like 38 trillion, be afraid, all this debt. No one comes to you and says, oh, by the way, did you know that you own a chunk of the asset side of that same balance sheet? I got a banker right here. He understands balance sheets. One of the best bankers in the country. Way to go, Brian. But we have hundreds of trillions of dollars of assets. I mean, the 500 million acres of land I have an opportunity and the obligation to try to lead and manage, 700 million acres of subsurface, 3 billion of offshore acres. That's just interior. That's just one department has got a balance sheet that's larger than any company in the world. and it belongs to the American people. And we're doing everything we can, whether it's hunting or fishing or access or farming or timber or cattle ranching or oil and gas development. Theodore Roosevelt put away these resources for the benefit and the use of the American people. They were put away for you. It's our job when we sustainably manage them to get a return for all of you. And I just hope all of you can leave here tonight knowing that you're in a lot better financial shape than you thought you were, because you own a chunk of this world's largest balance sheet if you're an American citizen, and know that right now that we're headed in a direction where that abundance is going to help make sure that more and more people can achieve the American dream, like so many of us in this room have had a chance to do that. So that's one of the things that we're going to absolutely be celebrating, and I can't think of a better way to celebrate it than at the TR Presidential Library, which is a celebration of these three things: leadership, conservation, citizenship.
Well, so one of the more interesting calls that Secretary Burgum and I have had in pursuit of the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library coming to fruition was with you, Brian, when you shared a pretty extraordinary and personal connection with Theodore Roosevelt via a relative of yours that was involved in one of the more tragic events in U.S. history that led to Teddy saving the game of football. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that was not the intention of the call, because the Secretary was calling for us to, we'd already committed some to the museum, and he was trying to finish it off and push it ahead. So the call was about that. And
That was me trying to get you to give more?
Yes,
I mean, I'm shocked that was.
You won.
I don't remember that, but. But I heard your $5 million was an amazing initial gift to the library.
He did just raise the fundraiser.
I get that feeling. So anyway, part of the dialogue is about Teddy Roosevelt saving football. And it snapped in my mind the story that goes back to when I was a kid. So I was one of 8 kids. My mother was a force of nature, got married at 18, 10 pregnancies, 8 kids, 3 brothers that are 3.5 years apart who were in the middle, so we tormented everybody. And when we got punished, we had to clean 2 things, one of which isn't relevant, one is relevant. But there was a silver service, about 25 pieces, ornate as you can believe. And you had to take toothpicks to clean it because it's all etched. That silver service was awarded to a fellow named John Byrne when he retired as a police chief of Buffalo, New York in 1899, I think it was. But the story was that his son tragically died playing football in 1909, and he was a cadet at West Point. And in 1905, they had 18 people died playing American football. So soccer became rugby, rugby became American football, and they played it in Leatherheads and all the stories about it. So 18 people died, and they were going to kill the game. And President Roosevelt at the time came up with a set of rules, called him in and said, "You got to quit doing this because we can't have these kids died." So then you go along a few more years, and here this cadet dies. It's Harvard, West Point. It's front page of the New York Times. He dies, and the debate was, were they going to go back and say football wouldn't work? And Roosevelt reconfirmed, and the West Point had reconfirmed, but they did cancel the Army-Navy game that year. It's one of the 4 times it's been canceled. And so that fellow was Cadet Byrne. His dad was President Byrne. But my view of all this was a story that was told to me. And then one time I'm reading the Wall Street or New York Times, and the whole article's there about this happening. And it must have been an anniversary or something like that. And it was true. I always thought my mom had sort of told me a story. And it turned out it was true that whatever relative it was, my mother's uncle, I think it was, and there's a kid. But I visualized the story through cleaning Q-tips, toothpicks, the silver service for 3 hours in the hot Ohio house. But it really is a tribute. And he did save football twice, because it was back on the table again. And I think we owe him a debt of gratitude to that, especially if you're a Patriots fan. But you really owe him a debt of gratitude to that, because in the end of the day, that institution is one of the unique institutions in America. We're going to sponsor what the world calls football, with FIFA coming in. We're one of the lead sponsors of that. That's not American football for the Americans in the room. The people outside the country, we got it, but this is American football, and it wouldn't be here today had he not saved it. So it was just an odd connection. It never occurred to me when you asked me, you called me, but it came up, and it turns out I kept researching it, and we found out it was really all true.
And for those who are astute listeners to history, Brian just mentioned that his relative, his ancestor, retired as the police chief of Buffalo in 1899. President McKinley was assassinated in Buffalo in 1901, so he was not the police chief when McKinley was assassinated, leading to Vice President Roosevelt ascending, but he was called to the scene of the crime and actually interviewed the assassin. So
I'm going to have to go back and find that tea service because I think we gave it to the museums in Buffalo and get it back. So
we might want that at the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. It's a pretty unique connection.
A couple of postscripts on this with Brian's story about TR saving football. There's a book out now literally called How Teddy Saved Football. And think about it now, I mean, professional football, largest, well, between college and professional, largest sport in America, has surpassed all the others in terms of gross receipts. And of course, we're full of good ideas, but one of the things, I know that this group will keep it a secret, so we'll share something here. It hasn't been disclosed yet, but one of the dreams that the library has is because of TR Save Football is that TR would be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. How many people think that would be a good idea? That's a good idea? Yep. Okay. What?
Strong support from the North Dakota delegation right up front.
Are we in the only room in America that doesn't like American football? I don't know, but I was going to say, so we have this, but coming up in it's not an official 250, but we're getting so good at holding the events. Of course, Roger Goodell was in the White House. In the Oval Office, I had a chance to be with him there because the National Park Service controls the National Mall. So, you know, this is the greatest job in the world because everybody needs a permit from you. I mean, it's like before they can. Anyway, and so the draft for the NFL is being held on the mall a year from now on the 2027 with the Capitol will be in the background. But this is and you say, well, what does that matter? Let's pay attention to the ratings. When the draft was in Milwaukee this year on a cold spring day, they had more people watching the draft than watched many of the final games of my beloved NBA, and certainly more than the World Series. And so just even the draft is now a bigger poll. That's how big this is. But I'd say keep it a secret, keep your fingers crossed, but I think we're going to see Theodore Roosevelt inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and it'll be happening at the library, but it's going to be announced on the mall. I'm manifesting. It's going to be announced on the mall when Roger Goodell is there, conducting the draft, and at that event, we'll be handing out, because Ed is so modest, but we talked about his life, TR's life being influenced by his wife and his mother being passed away. There was a best-selling book last year written about the loves of Theodore Roosevelt, the women that shaped a president, his first wife, his second wife after he'd been widowed, his mother, his daughter Alice, who ended up having huge influence, who David photographed. Alice, right? Yeah, that's amazing.
I told you
as a baby, right?
Anyway, the best-selling book, and it's available around the country. Also, will be available in the bookstore at the TR Library too.
I certainly hope so. I do know a guy.
Well, he can do all the fundraising himself, then just sell more books.
Well, as we wrap up here tonight, Brian, I want to present you with a little something special. So we have a tradition at the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, similar to what happens at the U.S. Capitol, of flying the American flag for special individuals and special organizations that have helped us accomplish this audacious and historic idea. And this flag was flown over the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library recently, and we brought it here to Washington, D.C. to present to you and to Bank of America for our sincere gratitude for your incredible gift, and
No, it's an honor.
and for all you do to preserve American history. Bank of America is an incredible steward of democracy, capitalism, and our shared history.
Thank you, and it's an honor to help this great museum get built and get started and get promoted. And I think we always have to remind people the combination of what this country did from democracy plus the capitalistic system is spun ends up with us having a balance sheet that the Secretary described. It's that commitment to the freedom and the opportunity, and you can do anything you want to do no matter who you are. And we've had bumps tonight, took a while to get certain places, but at the end of the day, if you look at it today, that is wholly different than any place in the world, having traveled the world extensively and witnessed other systems. So we need them both. We need democracy done right, we need capitalism done right, and then the country is free.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, President Roosevelt was president at America 125, which was exactly between 125 years from the Declaration of Independence and 125 years from where we are on July 4th, 2026. So we will look forward to America 500, and Bank of America will be there. Thank you very, very much for your time tonight. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you so much.